It is my pleasure to introduce Randy Casarez. I first met Randy when he became Distinguished Club Program Chair in 2017. I happened to be the outgoing chair that year. Randy was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, and has been a Toastmaster since 2011. He has 4 college degrees, 2 associate degrees in business and liberal arts, a bachelor's degree in business, and a master's degree in accounting. Randy's Toastmasters background is equally as impressive. He has earned 4 Distinguished Toastmasters awards. He's an active member of 5 clubs: Sunrisers, Leaders First, Competitive Edge, From Pen to Podium, and Midtown Toast Pros. And he has served the district as a 2-time area director, a Pathways ambassador, in addition to DCP chair. Today, Randy will offer information and share some of his own experience with the Toastmasters CoreValues. His presentation will conclude with an opportunity for questions and discussion. Please give a warm welcome to Randy Casarez, DTM, presenting The Impact of CoreValues. Randy.
Thank you, Nancy. Fellow Toastmasters, I want to begin this opportunity by thanking you for coming here. I know it's against the Toastmasters rules, but I figured I'd start off by breaking the rules by thanking all of you for being here. What I want to talk to you today about is the core values. First of all, how many of you know what the 4 core values are in Toastmasters? The 4 core values are integrity, respect, service, and excellence. Those are the 4 core values. And actually, a few years ago, I got this pen from one of the events at Toastmasters, if you can see. And behind it is the core values. And I love the core values because for some people in society, it doesn't mean anything. But here in Toastmasters, it's a way of life. And I don't think it's talked about enough in our clubs, at events. And finally, our district director, Distinguished Toastmaster David Hopper at TLI, finally talked about the core values. And he was limited to time, so he couldn't go over the details, but he talked about the core values. And I really appreciate that moment because the core values should be a reminder of how not only we should conduct ourselves in meetings, at Toastmasters events, but also out there in society, because that's what Toastmasters is about. It's about gaining the skills that you learn in Toastmasters and applying them out there in society. If you're not doing that, then you really are missing the boat. That's what Toastmasters is all about. And I want to talk about these core values because it's a testament that if you don't use them, not only in your meetings at Toastmaster events, but out there in society, you will not be able to have a happy, successful life. Notice what I said, a happy, successful life. You can be successful all you want, but if you're not truly happy with yourself, then you're never going to be completely successful inside here. I want to start with integrity. What does that mean, integrity? Our district director, David Hopper, described integrity as doing the right thing, not talking about people behind their back. And that is true. You want to have integrity at all times. And I'm not talking about being perfect. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes from time to time. But I'm talking about integrity. When you do make a mistake, admitting that you were wrong and saying, I'm sorry. And it's hard. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry, but let's be honest. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Integrity is about saying, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and moving on. I've been in Toastmasters for 10 years. And most of the time, I would say most Toastmasters use integrity. And they also show respect towards each other, which is another core value. But integrity is very crucial because not only if you choose to do the wrong thing can affect you, it can affect others. And there's no better example than contests. How many of you have competed in a contest before? Whether it's a club contest, area contest, division contest, district contest. How many of you have been a judge or a contest chair or a contest manager? Well, whether you're a functionary or you're a judge or you're a contestant, you play a very important role when it comes to these contests. And there are rules that we have to follow. Now, sometimes I don't always agree with the rules, but it is what it is. Okay, there are rules that we have to follow. And in the last few years, I've seen people break these rules and break them on purpose. And I'm just sometimes astonished. And that's not integrity. And I'm going to give you a couple examples where I saw some people breaking some rules. A few years ago, I was at an area contest and I was competing myself in another area contest. So therefore, I wasn't a judge. I wasn't a functionary. I was just watching. And there was one of my fellow Toastmaster friends that's a distinguished Toastmaster that's been in Toastmasters for 40 years. He competed in the Tall Tales contest and won the area. And afterwards, I went up to him and said, "Hey, great job. I'm glad you won. You're going to go on to the division." Next day, I go to another area contest, and there he is. But this time, he has a judge's folder. I'm saying, wait a minute. You just won the area contest. You can't be a judge. It's against the rules. And I knew that he knew this rule because he's been in Toastmasters for over 40 years. He's had many high positions in Toastmasters. I go to the chief judge and I tell him that person won the area contest yesterday in the Tall Tales. He can't be a judge. And of course, the chief judge did the right thing, pulled him out of being a judge. And I was astonished with his response. He didn't admit he was wrong. Rather, it was, I was just going to be a judge in the international contest. I wasn't going to be a judge in the Tall Tales contest. Yeah, right. See, that's where integrity comes into play. Doing the right thing. And doing the right thing means following the rules. If you're not following the rules, then you really are missing the boat. I'm telling you, you have to follow those rules. The next year, a similar situation happened again, where one of my other friends that's been in Toastmasters for years, I was the chief judge that year because I was an area director, so I couldn't compete. And I asked this person, "Hey, can you be a judge in this area contest?" I didn't know that he was competing. So he says, "Yeah, sure." And he comes to the area contest, comes to the briefing, he's a judge. We finish the contest, life is great. Next day, I go to another area contest and he is competing in this area contest. Once again, I have to be the bad guy and go to the chief judge and say, "Well, he can't compete because he was a judge for me yesterday. It's against the rules." So they had to pull him from being a contestant. And how disappointing. There's nothing more disappointing than putting your heart, your sweat, your tears into a speech and finding out you can't compete simply because you didn't follow the rules. It's important to follow the rules. And that's what integrity is all about. When you follow the rules, you get better results. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to worry about people talking about you behind your back. You're just doing what you're supposed to be doing. But it's when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's when you're not using integrity as a tool to help others. Before I arrived to Sunrisers Toastmasters, they had a situation with a treasurer, where the treasurer was actually charging like $100 in club fees in addition to the international dues. And he was using those club fees for his own personal business. Again, that's really against the law. So finally, they caught him doing that, and he shortly after left the club. But I'm talking, that's a lack of not only integrity, but a lack of respect, if you really think about it, which is one of our core values. See, these core values go hand in hand. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I'm just going to use integrity and forget about respect and forget about service and forget about excellence. It doesn't work that way. You use these multiple times every day. Integrity, respect, service, and excellence. They could be all used at the same time. Remember that. If there's anything you get out of this, remember you use these core values multiple times. Integrity, respect, service, and excellence. What I want to talk about now is, of course, about when you use respect. And there's an old saying that I was taught, and I know most of you were taught the same thing, guaranteed. I was taught that if a person doesn't show you respect, you don't give them respect. If you want respect, you have to give respect. And that is so true. And when I think of respect, I think of this one Toastmaster, and she was an intelligent woman. She had several degrees. She was good with animals. She made a 6-figure income. One of the smartest women I ever met. But at the same time, as far as when it came to her personality, as far as when it came to respect, she didn't have respect for other people. She used to talk about Toastmasters, how a Toastmaster is a cult, how Toastmasters is this, how Toastmasters doesn't teach you how to become a professional speaker. And I used to tell her all the time, well, if you feel that way about Toastmasters, then maybe you shouldn't be a part of Toastmasters. But she used to renew every single time, still complaining about Toastmasters. And finally, it came back to bite her in the butt. And what do I mean by that? She started doing several things that people started to notice. Like, it got to the point that she would show up late to meetings, to contests on purpose, not by accident, on purpose. And her reason was, well, I deserve to be late because I have this going on and I have this going on, and I don't need to be on time. Then when she was offered an officer role as treasurer, and I told this at TL Live because this is how crucial it is, turning those dues on time. If you don't turn those dues on time, if you don't have 8 members renew during the springtime, it can affect a person from competing at an area contest. Well, I had a dear friend in this club along with me and her, and this guy was amazing. His first year, he went all the way to the district level and won the Tall Tales contest. That's how good he was. A few years later, he decides, I'm going to compete again. I'm going to compete in the Tall Tales. He wins the club level. He wins the area level. He wins the division level. And then he's waiting to compete at the district level. And what happens a week before the contest? He gets a call from the district saying, sorry, you were never eligible to compete because your club was never in good standing and you were never in good standing. Therefore, you can't compete. Just imagine putting your heart, your sweat, your tears into your contest speech and being told you can't compete, not because you did anything wrong, but because the treasurer didn't submit the dues on time. And again, we're all human. We all make mistakes. When she was told about this, she didn't say, sorry, I made a mistake. I should have submitted on time. It was more like, well, it's not my fault. I told you that I couldn't do this job. I was voluntold to do this, and really had a negative attitude about it. Denver apologized to this poor guy that put his heart and sweat and tears. Now, he didn't quit because of that, but someone else could have quit. It takes those little things when you show no respect for people to say, you know what? I don't need Toastmasters. But like I said, it came to bite her in the butt. And you know how? About 2 years ago, as the legacy program was finishing, She had achieved advanced communicator gold. She had achieved advanced leadership bronze. And all she needed to do was two things. She needed to be an area director and coach a club or mentor or sponsor a club. She was this close to getting her DCHAMP. She applied for it. And because of the reputation that she had developed, the division director started emailing certain members, and I was one of them. Hey, what do you think of this person? And I never said for the record that she couldn't be area director. I just said if you elect her as area director, you select her. And really, it's a district director that has to select her to make it official. But I said, you're going to be dealing with someone that shows up late. You're going to be dealing with someone that's going to have a negative attitude. So just be aware. Because I don't like to say no and not give people opportunity. But ironically, he emailed me back and said, you're not the first person to say that. She developed such a negative attitude and showed so much disrespect towards people that she didn't get to be an area director. She didn't get the opportunity to be a distinguished Toastmaster. And that is what respect is about. If you don't give respect, you're not going to get respect. It's that simple. If you're disrespecting people all the time, then it's going to show. Okay. One time I was at a library and I was trying to actually book a room for Toastmasters, ironically. And this person, the person that worked there, the librarian, started screaming at me, just yelling at me, saying, hold on, I'll be with you in a minute. And everyone looked at her like in disbelief. I never was rude to her. I never approached her. Maybe she was in a bad mood. Maybe something happened. But that showed a lack of disrespect. And ironically, she doesn't work at that library anymore. So when you don't show respect, it comes to bite you in the butt. And it's not only important to show respect with Toastmasters or with members, but especially when you're evaluating people. Evaluation is very crucial. And every once in a while, I'll see an evaluation that will just shake my head in disbelief. And I know there's some experienced Toastmasters that just love to say, hit me. Tell me how it is. Tell me that I suck. Tell me that I'm this and that so that I can improve. And there's nothing wrong with pointing out suggestions and areas to improve on. Actually, that's what evaluation is about. But you also want to always point out the strengths, because if you just focus on the areas that you improve on, you may forget about the strengths that you already have as a speaker. So the sandwich method is the best way to go. You want to be honest, but there's a respectful way to do it. And I'll never forget this evaluation I got from a distinguished Toastmaster, a Toastmaster that's been around for 30 years. I get up there, I give my speech, I finish. He gets up there and says, Randy, you did a great job. That was a great speech. You're a great speaker. When it came to suggestions, he was like, you know what you need to do, Randy? You need to lose weight. And if you lose weight, you'll be able to be a better speaker. And I was just shocked and disbelief. Because first of all, whether you're overweight or whether you're not, that has nothing to do with your speaking ability. It really doesn't. But I was just taken back. I said, that's not the Toastmaster way. And I'm a big boy. I can handle things like that. But I'm thinking to myself, if you said that to a new member, that new member might have said, you know what? I'm out of here. I don't need Toastmasters. If I'm going to be disrespected, then it's not worth it. So remember, in evaluations, you always want to use that sandwich method. That's the best way. And even when it comes to professional speaking, you want to use that sandwich method. You definitely want to be honest with people and tell them, hey, this is the areas that you need to improve on, but there's a way to do it. And there's a way not to do it. My second year at Toastmasters, I was actually an area director. I go to one of my clubs that's having their club contest, and they're having the evaluation contest. And I'll never forget this small speaker. He was talking about how he was a life insurance agent, how he was selling insurance, and how we should buy insurance. And one of the mall speakers that happened to be a distinguished Toastmaster gets up there. And he just starts saying, that's the worst speech I ever heard. How dare you sell your product? That's not the Toastmaster way. And he just goes on and on and on. And I'm just shaking my head in disbelief. But ironically, he did something that shows integrity. Afterwards, he apologized. He knew he was wrong. See, even when you mess up, you can still fix it in most cases. You're screaming and yelling at someone, you could say, you know what, I'm sorry, I messed up, I was having a moment, and move on. And that's showing integrity. Remember, using these core values multiple times at the same time. Not just saying, today I'm just going to show respect and the heck with integrity. Or today I'm just going to show integrity and respect with respect, service, and excellence. It doesn't work that way. You can use these at multiple times in multiple situations. Remember that. What I want to talk about now is service. What is service? And when I think of service, I think of customer service. And I don't care what type of job you've had, career, if you own your own business, if you work for someone, customer service is crucial. If you don't have good customer service, you're not going to make it. It's that simple. You're not. It's all right to be honest and it's all right to be blunt, but there is a good customer way of doing it. You can still service others just with a smile, extending your hand, doing the little things. But there's an old saying that I was taught as well. The customer is always right. And there is a particular bar that I like to go to in Tucson, Arizona. And every time I go to this bar, I order a small pitcher of Bud Light. My drink is Bud Light. That's what I love to drink. That's the only alcohol I drink. I go there and I notice that there is a new bartender. I say, okay, there's a new bartender. She asked me what I want. I said, I want a small pitcher of Bud Light. She comes back with a bottle of Bud Lights. And I look at her and I say, well, I didn't order that. I ordered a small pitcher of Bud Light. She starts arguing with me in front of everyone in that bar, saying, no, you ordered a bottle of Bud Light. I said, no, I didn't. I've been coming here for years. I know what I ordered. I ordered a small pitcher of Bud Light. Arguing in front of everyone is not the way to do it. That's not good customer service. And I remember, as I said to myself, because she finally got me my small pitcher of Bud Light. And I was thinking to myself, she's not going to last too long. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, what happens? I go back in that bar and I say, hey, where's that new bartender? They said, oh, she got fired. She didn't last too long because I showed her actually respect by not complaining, just saying, okay, she's having a moment. But there are some people, if you disrespect them, they're not going to respect you. It goes back to the core values. I guarantee you someone complained about her and she was gone. Customer service is the way to go. And especially in Toastmasters. I see this all the time in Toastmasters where some members will take on an officer role. Oh yeah, I'll do it. But then they don't put any effort into that officer role. I'll never forget it. I was at a meeting. It was an officer meeting last year. And it was during elections. So it was around May. And they wanted this one particular member to be secretary. Again, she had been secretary. And even she said, well, I didn't really do a good job because I didn't have time, blah, 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 blah. And I'll never forget what one of the members, one of the officers, I should say, said. They said, oh, you don't have to give it 100%. You can just give it 30%. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, what? Giving it 30%? You should give it 100%. I always tell my mom this because my mom says, well, you're heavily involved in Toastmasters. You must love Toastmasters. And I did. But I always tell her, if I just like Toastmasters and I just belong to one club and that club elected me to be vice president of public relations, let's say, I'd feel obligated to go to TLI. I feel obligated to do the best I could in that role because the members have said, we're entrusting you to do the role. That's just how I grew up. I'm always amazed people will take on these roles and just say, oh, well, I don't really care about it. Oh, well, I was just voluntold to do this. Oh, well, I'm just doing it because we were so short that they needed someone. That is the wrong attitude to have when it comes to servicing, especially in Toastmasters. That is not the right attitude. If you're elected to an officer role, if you're elected to a chair role, you should take that role seriously. And that should be the attitude. And I'm not just talking about being an officer. I'm talking about doing the little things. Like, for example, working on project speeches. I knew this one distinguished Toastmaster that used to tell me all the time, well, I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, so from this point on, I'm just going to work on the speeches I want to work. So I'm not going to work on any project speeches. What? If you look at the Toastmasters promise, it's right there. It pretty much says you'll work on project speeches, and it pretty much says you'll attend the meeting regularly. And if you're not doing that, you're not meeting the promise that you made to the club. It's that simple. You're not. And it's always a challenge with these older members to get them excited about pathways, but it's a win-win situation for everyone. If you're doing a path and you're completing a path, then it helps you grow as a speaker and as a leader, but more importantly, it helps the club achieve DCP goals. And that DCP is designed for one reason and one reason only. It's a testament if a club is healthy or not. It's that simple. It's not about just getting ribbons and being a distinguished club. It's about measuring if a club is healthy or not. Now, if they don't meet the DCP, doesn't mean they're a bad club, no. But it starts with the little things like that. Members doing project speeches. I'll never forget it. I was giving moments of the truth at one of my clubs, and one of the members stands up and says, you know what, Randy? I'm not here to give project speeches. I'm just here to speak. And I showed him respect, but I was laughing inside, to be honest with you, because I was saying, well, how can you improve as a speaker if you don't have specific objectives to follow? That's the idea of pathways, so that you could be successful, so that you can grow as a speaker, so that you can grow as a leader. That's what it's about. And when people don't do those things, it not only hurts them, but it hurts the club. So that's what servicing is about, servicing your club. And I'm going to go on to excellence, because excellence is, I believe, very crucial. All these core values are very crucial, but especially excellence. And what is excellence? You might assume that excellence is about achieving Toastmaster awards. It's about winning contests, but it's not. It's about giving it 110%. And as I say 110%, I'm laughing inside, because I knew if one of my friends was here who's a distinguished Toastmaster, they would say, there's no such thing as 110%. There's only 100%. But I believe there is such thing as 110%, giving it your all. A month ago, I saw this young woman who said so many ums, ahs, so's, it wasn't even fun. But she had such a great story that I said, wow. And she was willing to speak about her story, about her life. And that's what it's about, giving it 110%. We consume ourselves so much with material things. We want this, we want that. And when someone else has it, we get jealous. Don't consume yourself with jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. But remember, the race is long. And at the end, it's with yourself. You're competing against yourself, and that's it. I'll never forget, there was a Toastmaster buddy of mine, not a distinguished Toastmaster, but a Toastmaster that's been around for 30 years. And one of the other members asked him, well, what type, do you have a distinguished Toastmaster award? And he says, no, I don't have that. I don't need that. And he looked right at me as he said it. And as he said it, I was thinking to myself, well, I don't care if you don't have a distinguished Toastmaster award. What I care is if you're growing, you're succeeding, you're thriving, if you're getting something out of it. I care if you're doing a project speeches, because when you're meeting specific objectives, you're growing as a speaker and leader. That's what matters. Now, I have 4 DTMs, but I don't expect everyone to have the same goal and say, well, I got to get 4 DTMs because Randy got 4 DTMs. No. Again, you're not competing against anyone but yourself, and you should give it 110%. And what do I mean by giving it 110%? Once a month, give a speech. Give a speech in your club. Just once a month. I have one member in one of my clubs. She's only given an icebreaker, one speech in her 3 years. That's it. She is talented. She is one of the smartest people I ever met, but yet her fear stops her from achieving success. I believe if she kept practicing her craft as a speaker, she would get better. She would develop the confidence that she needs, but she doesn't want to. And that's where it starts. It starts with you saying, okay, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do this for myself. And I'm going to give it 100%, 110%. And that's what excellence is about, giving it 110%. It irks me when I see members, and not all members, but some members come into Toastmasters and say, well, I'm just here to get away from my spouse for an hour and a half. I'm just here because I enjoy the speeches. You have so much potential. And now more than ever, we need leaders in our country because we got a lot of problems. That's just the stone cold truth. And these core values can help you achieve success. But are you willing to give it 110% in that process? And that's why I love these core values. I hope that in the future, these core values are talked about even more. Because think about it, integrity, respect, service, excellence. That's what's going to help you achieve a successful, happy life. And I'm not talking about being a multimillionaire. I'm not talking about being the world champion public speaking. I'm talking about being truly happy with yourself. That's the question. Are you truly happy? And if the answer is no, then you know what? It's never too late to change. Use these core values in your club. Use these core values in society, and you will see a difference in your life. These core values are the way to go. Integrity, respect, service, excellence. I will now take questions.
No, Randy, we struggled in our club with the officers not really understanding totally the roles as they became new officers. How do you do like transition meetings between one officer to the next to help the new officers?
That's a good question. Yes. For example, when I left the treasury position in one of my clubs, I got together with the treasurer that was going to take over to make sure that, first of all, they're on the account, and second of all, that they're ready to go. So, yes, you should always get together. And actually, in one of my other clubs, one of the officers did something unique. They actually went over the roles in a speech. And that's what I highly recommend. I highly recommend that you go over the roles and do it in a speech format where the officers are there. And I highly recommend that you go over the DCP. It's not talked about enough.
I love that. You have 2 other questions here, Randy.
Okay.
Betty says, Randy, you did an excellent job, but what are your thoughts about paper members?
What's my thought about paper members? I'm really against it in many ways because it doesn't allow. It's great to have paper members, and if you're like in a situation, for example, where you just need one more member, and one person's willing to join to help the club become distinguished, and that's okay. But it's another thing when you have, and as David Hopper pointed this at when he was talking about the core values, it's another thing when you add paper members, like if you need 4 or 3 just to become distinguished. That's not okay. You want active members because you're going to be if you do that on a continuous basis, you're going to be back in the same boat. So it's not really integrity.
Right. The next question is from Ken, and Ken is asking, Randy, how can the club reinforce these core values to new members?
Well, I highly recommend, and it's something that I used to do, and it's a lot easier said than done because let's be honest here, and I'm just being honest. I got another evaluation I got one time was about, oh, you talk about Toastmasters too much. We want to hear about you. So a lot of members will go to Toastmasters and they want to hear about personal stories, motivational stories. But this is the time to say, okay, I'm going to talk about the core values. I'm going to talk about the DCP, and I'm going to talk about officers. They should be illustrated more in the club level. And I would even highly recommend, and this is a suggestion that I'm going to make to one of my clubs, that you put the core values on the agenda so that people can see them on a regular basis.
Nice answer. Thank you for that. Oh, no open questions. It just popped away. I've never seen that before. Webinars, they're so tricky. You know, new members, you kind of walk carefully with because you're a guide, you're a mentor. You don't want to, I know one club I seen where they were pushing things so hard. Evaluations were 100% negative, but they thought that was a good way to see them grow. What are your feelings on that? I know you talked about the pie, or not the pie, but the sandwich method of evaluations. How do you think about that? I mean,
I think there's nothing wrong with being honest. I know where people are coming from when they say, I want you to be honest with me and tell me I need to improve on this and this. And some Toastmasters experienced ones will say, I want you to hit me hard. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that what can happen, and this has happened to me per se, I'll get an evaluation and they'll say, okay, on this evaluation, you were so loud that you need to just, tone it down a little bit. So in the next speech, I'll tone it down, but then I'll forget to use vocal variety. See, if you don't hear the good things that you're doing on a regular basis, what's bound to happen? You're bound to forget them. And then you're going to have to work on that the next time. So that's why you want to use the sandwich method. You want to know what you're doing right, not just what you're doing wrong. Because if you just hear what you're doing wrong, then you're going to forget what you were doing right. So you want to use that sandwich method and say, okay, this is the areas that you're doing well on. And you want to continue to do well on them. And you want to continue to expand on them. And then you want to point out, hey, this is what you need to work on. There is a proper way to say something that's the same thing versus saying something mean. I'll give you an example. If I tell Colleen, I'll just use you as an example. If I say, Colleen, your vocal variety just sucked. It was horrible. Versus if I say, Colleen, you gave a great speech, but you need to enhance your vocal variety a little bit better. Which one sounds better? I'm saying the same thing, but there's a negative way to say things and there's a positive way to say things. You could say suggestions and give good suggestions, but in a positive way.
Thank you, Randy. They lost 6 members in 2 weeks with that method. So your method is much stronger, better. Miss Nancy Duckett has a question. Nancy?
Yes. Thank you, Randy. We could tell that core values are a really passionate topic for you. You mentioned giving and getting respect. Do you have any suggestions for having those difficult conversations with someone that might be off track a bit so we could help them come back into the Toastmaster way?
That's a good question, Nancy. With the particular member that I mentioned, that was hard to do. I mean, I did try to sit down with her a couple of times, but anytime you would point out something that she wasn't doing right, she would just walk away. So my suggestion is sit down with them one-on-one. What you don't want to do, and I saw this with a Toastmaster situation that I'm not going to mention, other than I saw someone emailing the whole club about one particular member. That's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to email the whole club about the situation. What you want to do is you want to pull that person aside and say, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing from you. How can we fix it? How can we work with you? How can you get what you want out of Toastmasters so that you don't feel it's a waste of time? That's the best method to use. If you have any problems in general with people, don't email the whole club. Just bring it up to that one person and say, hey, this is my issue with you. We need to see how we can fix this because we want you to continue to grow and thrive and succeed in Toastmasters.
Thank you, Randy. That's really helpful.
Integrity, respect, service, and excellence. Those are our core values. And I like what you said about placing them on our agendas. Some clubs, advanced clubs, don't have agendas. I joined one the other night. How do we get this message across? I wish every club had the money to purchase one of these and give it to each person. Right. But we know our small clubs don't have that. With that,
yeah, that's a good question. One things you can do, and I'm kind of surprised that this club doesn't have an agenda, but maybe they have some reasons. But nevertheless, there should be like maybe an outline. You know, for example, you're meeting on Zoom, maybe have it on your Zoom before you start the meeting. You know, along with the club name, and maybe if you have your personal vision statement and then the core values. Or if you're having a live meeting, maybe put it up on next to the lector, so it's right there. But also, like I suggest, I'm going to highly recommend this because one of the things that I've been a little disappointed in, and I'm so proud that finally David Hopper took the medal with this and ran with it and said, we're going to talk about the core values. It's not talked about enough. And I think the one member from that club, and maybe should be the president, that actually talks about the core values, goes into details. Because I think once people hear the core values enough, they'll start to understand. If you were to ask some Toastmasters what the core values are right now, they wouldn't know. Matter of fact, I was interviewing Division Trio members they were going for a position, and some of them couldn't name the core values. So it's not talked about enough, and it needs to be. I mean, maybe even do a TLI session about it, because there's a lot of situations that occur that happen in Toastmasters. Although Toastmasters is a great organization, it's a wonderful organization. But let's be honest, from time to time, we have situations where people are being disrespectful for whatever reason, not using integrity. And this is the time to talk about it at TLI, about saying, hey, these are the core values. We need to follow them. Because listen, we're all human, and it's human nature to react to your emotions and let your emotions get the best of you. But the key is controlling your emotions, using those core values. And at the end of the day, what matters is that you have a happy, successful life.
Thank you, Randy. Great answer. Lisa Raymond had a question for you. Lisa, can you come off mute, please? Floor. I can't hear her. Can you hear her, anybody?
No, I can't hear her.
You gotta stay with
I have two methods of mute, so that way I don't violate the speaker. I apologize. Randy, in talking about the core values and how we can introduce that in our clubs, even as an officer, would you then also recommend that we put it in a membership packet or even a guest packet, whether that's something that you hand out if you're in a hybrid situation or digital?
That's a good question. Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely would put it in the guest packet, because if people see that these are our core values, I think it adds more flavor to Toastmasters. If I'm a brand new member, I've never heard of Toastmaster, or I should say guest, and then I go to a Toastmaster meeting and I see, okay, these are the core values, I'm going to be more intrigued. I'm going to be like, wow, this must be a wonderful organization, and I need to be a part of it. So I think it would add more flavor and promote it as often as possible. Like I said, if you have agendas, put it on the agenda. We have the Toastmaster mission statement, which is good, but we should also have the core values. And again, I'm a strong believer officers should be given speeches about the core values at least twice a year.
Hey, we have one from Loretta. How about printing the core values on the agenda, saying always remember the core values? I like that, Loretta. More of a statement. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would put it on the agenda. If you have agenda, I definitely put the core values on the agenda, because again, what it will do is more Toastmasters will know about the core values. The honest truth is, and it's not anyone's fault, if you were asked most Toastmasters what the core values are, they wouldn't be able to name them. And that's really sad. I mean, because they're great values. I really treasure these core values. And when I first heard them, I said, I need to memorize these core values. I need to memorize them for my own sake, so that it could be a reminder for myself and it could be a reminder for my club. Like I said, it's not promoted enough, and it needs to be promoted because they're great core values and it's a testament to Toastmasters. It really is.
I know that we're done a little early. Anybody have anything else? Or do you want 10 minutes of your life back? Thank you, Randy, again. This was wonderful. And everybody that came, have a wonderful day.